So you are afraid of something else. We all go to bed sometimes. You don't know what death is.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Welcome to the madness. We are the Mouths of Madness, your new favorite podcast for horror movie reviews. We're coming to you live tonight from the Dungeon of Doom. This is our episode 9 on the 2018 Hereditary. My name is Kevin, and we invite you all to sit down with us for the Madness Family Dinner. Let me go around the table to introduce you to the other members of Madness. First, we have Dan. Dan, how's the food?
Oh my god, Logan, this meatloaf, it's so bussin', man. Like you can really taste the fresh fennel, but there's something else I can't quite put my finger on. That there's just something unique about this. What's going on with this meatloaf?
I'd tell you, but I'd have to kill you. Oh, okay. Well,
That's okay.
all right. Well, on the left of the table to me is the mayor of Halloween Town, Bearclaw.
Yeah, I mean, the food is excellent, but I mean, Logan, I did want to kind of talk to you because, you know, as I was walking in here, I noticed there was, naked people, mostly middle-aged, kind of just hanging around and chanting your name. What's up, buddy?
That's just for ambiance. Don't worry about it. Oh, Dan, put down that chocolate cake. That's for later.
But I want it now.
Gotta wait. All right. Yeah, wait. Finally, our youngest member of Madness, Logan. Logan, how are you enjoying the dinner?
Oh, I'm having a wonderful time having you guys for dinner here. Sorry, over for dinner. Well.
Oh.
All right.
Okay.
Don't ask questions.
Yeah.
Just enjoy your food.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of plastic on the ground here, too. I don't really know what that's
It doesn't matter.
But, you know, yeah, I guess, the food's good.
And there's a lot of symbols on the walls as well.
Again, don't ask questions that you don't want answers to.
Oh, okay. Well, I know that there are a lot of other great horror movie podcasts out there, but what separates ours from the other ones is that we're going to be giving you the older versus younger perspective. Myself, Dan, and Bearclaw were all born in the 1980s, while my son Logan, he was born in the early 2000s. This is the clash of the generations. Now, before we get into the episode, I want to plug some of our stuff and where to find us. Follow us on our Instagram account. That's at mouths.of.madness. We also have a great YouTube channel, and that's at the Mouths of Madness. We have some great new trailer reactions from Straight Jacket Talk now available. Go check them out. And finally, email us at thepaddedroom@outlook.com and let Bearclaw know what's scribbled on your walls.
I need to get your thoughts, guys. You need to email me at thepaddedroom@outlook.com.
Now, for our content consumed this episode, we're going to let you know what we've been watching, what we've been listening to, what we've been reading, or gaming. Now, for me, I haven't done much watching this week, honestly.
Boring.
I know, I'm boring. Actually, I've been doing a lot of listening. I was cranking some Nirvana tunes.
Ooh.
It's been a while since I've gone through Nevermind.
Oh, you got to do that at least
great
a few
album.
times a year.
Yeah, and I know it's got all, the big time songs like Teen Spirit, Come As You Are, Lithium. But I love the other tracks, like Drain You is my
Drain You
favorite.
is a great song.
Yeah, On a Plane, Something in the Way, Breed.
Oh, yeah.
I love Breed.
That album and what's the other one? The MTV Unplugged album is one of my favorites.
That is the
too.
best album ever made.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite, live, even though
Their
I wasn't
covers
there.
are really good.
That in utero and Nevermind, of course, in vinyl, and it's just.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I bring them out all the time.
Well, you know what, too? This led me to actually watch a little YouTube for this guy, Rick Beato, who is a musician and he's a music producer and things like that. But he did a live chat, and he basically went over a playlist he had made from like 1994 through 1999, you know, after grunge. And that's a lot of that music we really grew up with, you know. And I was like thinking about it. I'm like, man, I'm going to make myself a playlist from that era. So that's what I did on Spotify. I added some Our Lady Peace, some Nine Inch Nails, Third Eye Blind. Yeah, Offspring, a little Bush. Who doesn't love a little Bush?
Hey.
You know, some Limp Bizkit, Korn, a little Creed.
So angry back.
Yes, a little Creed.
You know what came on my playlist the other day? Stained. Remember them?
Stained.
You guys are old.
Yes. Now, actually, you know, for you listening out there, right? Getting close. Come on. It's just you and Daddy right now.
Getting uncomfortable.
Yeah. I know we're here for
You
dinner.
can be honest with me. When you hear Creed on the radio or streaming, when you hear My Own Prison, you crank that up. And yes, when that line comes on, should have been dead on a Sunday morning, you are banging your head. Now, I'm glad we could have this honest one-on-one
on a
chat,
table.
because honesty is key. Anyways, Dan, what do you have?
Well, I've been nerding out hard in the lands between. I've been picking back up on my Elden Ring, the new DLC coming out in June. I started a new game, fresh start. No NG plus game. Just
Oh wow, no new game plus.
no doing
Ooh.
going in like
Get ready
base,
to
Going in
grind.
base
barehanded.
levels, base level
Bearclaw.
stat.
You're gonna have to beat the Moog before you can get into the DLC.
Yeah, just getting my ass handed to me here, there, and everywhere in
Yeah.
that game. That's really I've just been nerding out hard on that game.
Nice. I love Elden Ring.
Bearclaw, what do you have for this?
Oh, I've just been watching Hereditary videos. I've done nothing but scour YouTube and watch Hereditary videos about this movie. One of my favorites that I'll recommend is from Novum. It's a 5-hour video analysis on Hereditary. He also did he did a video called Paimon is a Bird, which he provides some real hard-hitting evidence on that. It's really consumed me in a very uncomfortable way, frankly, and I'll never forgive Logan for picking this movie. But that's kind of what I've been doing. So
over it.
Logan, we'll send it right on to you.
Yeah, I'm good. I'd rather watch a bird video than 5 hours of this discussion of this movie. So, yeah. For my content consumed this week, for like, you know, since the last podcast, you know, kind of the same things. You know, I'm still watching Shogun. It's a very good show. Obviously, it's kind of dipped a little bit. Obviously, as most shows do, you know, they kind of have that rough period where it's kind of getting to the story it's telling, but it's taking a long time. You know, there's 10 episodes altogether, so it's taking a while. But one of the shows I did just pick back up is Invincible on Prime Video. It's like a really good show that I forgot about because, you know, they did a break for a while. They did a mid-season finale, and they left us off for like 4 months waiting for the next part. So I'm trying to pick back up on it. It's very good.
Did the
I
next
recommend.
part come out yet?
Yeah.
Oh, it did.
Yeah.
Oh, so I'm behind then. 'Cause I
Yeah.
watched Invincible too. That's
Oh,
a
okay.
great show.
It's a great show.
Oh, it's
Season
awesome.
1 was one of the best like animated shows I think in a
Yeah.
long time, since like probably Batman the Animated Series or Avatar.
It's so good. I love that.
It's so good. Yeah. I recommend everyone watches that on Prime Video.
Yeah, that's a horror. That's a horror show too. I mean, not on the face of it, but it's real scary.
Yeah.
Oh, have to check it out.
J.K. Simmons.
Yep. As Omni-Man.
Yep.
Oh man.
Gotta think.
That's cool. Now, without any further ado, grab a beer, pull up a chair, hold on to your straitjacket tight, and let's dive into the madness. We watched Hereditary from 2018. It was written and directed by Ari Aster. He is the A24 king.
My boy.
Yeah, he's also known for Midsommar.
Can't wait to watch that
Midsommar.
movie.
Midsommar.
Yeah,
Yes.
say it right, man. One of my favorite A24 movies.
Midsommar.
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 Midsommar. Stop saying it so close to the
Midsommar.
mic. You're scaring the people away.
Maybe I'm bringing them in, Logan.
I would never do anything like that to anybody.
Oh, man. Well, this movie had a budget of $10 million. Do you guys know how much it grossed at the box office?
I'm gonna say 26 million.
I'm gonna say 30 million.
I'm gonna say 65 million.
Anna's the closest.
Really?
Yeah.
It definitely did good.
Yes, it did.
I was lowballing it.
It made just shy of $83 million at the box
Damn.
office.
Nice.
Wow.
And this is why
It was a big
Ari
hit.
Aster is the A24 king.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was
Yeah.
a return like that.
Yes, 100%.
Midsommar also did really good in the box office too. Both movies are pretty good in the box office. Obviously, I was thinking like 10 million on budget, 30 million probably is gonna make it, but like then I was like thinking about it, I'm like, wait a minute, this is one of the scariest horror movies ever. Critics have said that before in the past. It got a 90. Like it's really good.
Well, speaking of critics, currently on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 90% critic score, just like Logan had said, and a 70% audience score. So this is certified fresh. Now, Hereditary was Logan's pick for an episode. So Logan, why did you choose this movie for us to review?
Well, originally, I wanted to do this when we were talking about doing a horror podcast, like just like thinking about ideas for movies. I was obviously thinking like big movies. I really haven't seen like the big movies like Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th. Like I'm not really a big fan of those movies because I've never watched them. So I kind of brought in my younger generation with this movie, kind of bringing in this kind of horror movie to an older generation of people, like my three co-hosts here.
Mm-hmm.
And as well, I just want to scare the living daylights out of my father and Bearclaw here. So I think I accomplished
Mission
that.
accomplished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're welcome, America.
Well, open discussion. Was this the most terrifying movie you've ever seen? What's your overall thoughts on this one?
So I'll kick it off here. I'd say this is by and far. I mean, if what you're going for is to terrify,
Yep.
this movie is absolutely terrifying, beginning to end. I mean, my first time watching it, it makes me sad a little bit that I can't have my first time watching it back.
Wow.
But
yeah.
It is one of those things when you go into this movie, and I went into this movie truly blind.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely terrifying, and not in a fun way whatsoever.
Yeah.
One of the most astute descriptions of this that it come from Mr. Ari Aster himself is this is a tragedy that curdles into a nightmare.
Yes.
And I feel like that
Profoundly
is like
said.
the best description of this movie.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's spot on.
It's literally what it is.
yeah, and it's just it's truly terrifying. And this movie, I hate it, but it's genius, and it tears me up, and that says a lot about the skill with which this movie was executed, and the script and the acting, and I mean, it's beautiful and it's a masterpiece to behold, but it hurts me. It's
a
hurts
tragic
me to watch
masterpiece.
It.
Yeah.
It is a tragic masterpiece, and there is a lot of pain and guilt and family dysfunction and isolation in family and anxiety and sadness. So I mean, it's not a Friday night popcorn watch like a lot of other movies that we watch are.
You know what? I'm kind of glad you led this discussion off, because in my own head, I was trying to think about, how I would describe my my viewing experience with this movie.
Yeah.
Because, like you, this was my first watch as well, which, is cool. Logan actually had for a while been like, you have to see Hereditary.
Yeah, it was one of the movies I've told you to watch for many, many times.
Yeah, and I put it off. And, we had just done the Leprechaun episode, and being the sole survivor, like I was on the Leprechaun episode, I gotta say, and this might be a hot take, come for me.
Yeah.
I woke up and chose violence today.
Uh-huh.
I actually liked the Leprechaun better.
Editor's note, the rest of this podcast will be unedited because after hearing that take, I quit. You happy, Kevin? I quit.
Better than Hereditary?
Hang on. Let me cook.
Okay.
Hold up.
Okay.
Let me cook. Just like you said,
cap.
Bearclaw, this is not a fun movie.
No. No, zero fun.
Yeah,
You
zero
will
fun.
not be the sole survivor after this is all said and done.
This had some very terrifying images that are stuck in my brain forever.
welcome.
Thank you, Logan.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
so
some stuff I'm never really going to get over.
yeah, so I think, you know, viewing experience, yeah, the Leprechaun was fun and, you know, we had laughs and, you know, I could watch that over and over again. This one, not so much. And I think I got to be honest, and I know it seems like I'm putting this movie down, but this has one of the best atmospheres to a movie I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the atmosphere is everything on this. It's what's scary. You know, you're immersed in this world. You're immersed in these rooms, especially.
Terrifying.
You're looking in the corners.
The
You're-
opening makes it even better with the little dollhouse
You're
opening
in the
into it.
dollhouse.
Yeah, I love that shot when it kind of just brings right into the house there, the dollhouse or the
Oh, yeah.
model
It's just that
house.
seamless transition.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
it's
good at
very
those.
cool.
The way I would describe it is there's a lot of exposition, but it's all visual. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It's that show.
Oh,
Don't
this movie
tell.
shows.
I first saw this movie during COVID when we were locked down.
Oh, okay.
So
Same here.
I was isolated in place and watching this movie.
Yeah.
And I think it had such a just because of the atmosphere at home and the isolation on top of watching this just awful story play out. It's like you said, Bearclaw, like the first time seeing it is like an experience in itself. It is genuinely an unsettling movie.
Oh, yeah.
You can't get it out of your head the first time you see it.
No.
Like, as a matter of fact, I actually had to go for a ride, like a good hour and a half ride after watching it at 10 o'clock at night, just driving around and just thinking about that movie. It consumed me. There's so many just jarring scenes to it, and all the foreshadowing that is you miss
I know.
in the first viewing of it.
You know what? That's a great point. There's so much in this movie.
Oh.
I wish I
Gotta
had.
rewatch it.
I wish I had a naked Indian sitting next to me to explain everything.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
That's a Wayne's World 2
Ah,
reference.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh, you got some naked old people in this movie.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. There is a
Didn't
lot
you
of
like
naked
that,
old-
Bear?
There
Bearclaw?
are naked old people in this movie. That's true.
But I would think I would have enjoyed some of this too, with
You loved
somebody explaining different scenes.
Yeah.
You know,
Did you
and
see that naked Indian? Do you think that Indian was showing way too much butt? Whoa!
because
best
yeah,
scenes.
I mean, I needed a guide, I think, for this.
Yeah.
Because
Maybe some ayahuasca too.
that would have helped.
That
Yeah.
probably would have made it a lot better.
Well, your recommendation,
I can't
Dan.
imagine a worse idea than watching this movie on hallucinogens.
Dan's recommendation was to watch this in complete darkness, and that's what I did.
Yeah.
And it was trippy, So I can't even imagine being fucked
that's
up on
perfect.
anything watching this.
This movie was just so terrifying. And like you said, it had no fun in it whatsoever. It would be best probably described as a tragedy horror movie, which tragedy
It's like a
or
drama.
horror
Yeah.
is so inherent in tragedy, but then it takes this weird cult turn but everything. I mean, I hate this movie, but I love this movie. And the problem is that
Yeah.
I feel both of those emotions because I don't want to go through it again.
Yes.
But then you go through it again, you see all the Easter eggs, you see all these things, you realize that at no point did anybody in the family have any control or any options.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
had no options. They were put into such a corner.
So we're just watching this play out, basically.
Yeah, exactly. This is a music box. We know the song and when it's going to end. But that's what makes it all the more tragic and all the more terrifying.
It's and what's so crazy in meta about it is they even pull the Heracles thing in the classroom, and they're talking about the tragedy. What makes it more tragic that their fate is set in stone, and they're just completely oblivious to their own fate. That whole discussion in the classroom is such a meta of the entire story in itself.
That's right. And
Kinda
even
like Halloween.
even the dollhouse,
That's
down
a
to
good
the
point.
dollhouse, down to how they colored scenes, down to how what was where. Like one of the things that's cool to think about is that treehouse was always supposed to be hell.
Yeah.
Like, if you think about, like, the things that happen there and, like, who's staying up there and when during the movie, like, that's supposed to be hell. But then you've got the regular dollhouse that everybody's in, and you're seeing how the different characters are manipulated and react and you know, how they're pushed and prodded into different directions, and everybody's playing their part into this story of just tragedy and madness. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think I saw this described as a tragedy of fate, and I think that is like the best way to describe it. So I gotta ask, Logan, you saw this in COVID time, right?
Yeah,
and you
same
hadn't
as Dan.
seen many horror movies. So is this being one of the first horror movies you watched?
I mean, technically, it is one of the first horror movies I watched. Obviously, I think I watched Halloween 2018. That was like one of my very first horror movies. That was like the first one I really watched. Last Night in Soho was a big one I watched during COVID as well. But this was like the first one I thought that was really like one of its own. You know, it was very unique. It had its very own unique taste. And I'm just going to say it. It kind of reminded me of a show that's very similar to the same, well, not very similar, but it's got the same family issues that like most families kind of have, is like this centered around like trust and responsibility and these different actions that happen that lead us down to these roads of like, you know, obviously with this movie leading us down to hell.
Yeah.
But like one of the shows that I watched during COVID was The Bear, which is a very impactful show on family drama and all these kind of issues that they were all facing at the same time. Kind of raveling together. And obviously we had one of the best episodes of television was on The Bear when they had the family dinner for Thanksgiving. And it was one of the best episodes because of all these, like, it's so anxiety riddled and stressful. And I just love it so much. And even though, you know, it's got all those different factors, this movie also has that. I was very stressed out during this movie.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't
That's a good
stop.
point.
I couldn't stop being stressed out. Like, it literally, it held me down when I was trying to watch it, but I, like, couldn't stop watching it.
There's so much family tension.
It's incredible how they painted, though. Toni Collette is one of the best actresses because of this movie. This movie, like, made her what she is.
I don't know how she didn't get an award for this before.
How
this.
she didn't get her award.
Toni Collette's pretty. I mean, she was pretty prolific before this. I mean, you know, Sunshine, that movie. What is it? Little Miss Sunshine.
Little Miss
She's
Sunshine.
been in a couple big things.
But this was like the first one where I think everyone stopped and realized, like, holy shit, this actress is really good.
I mean, the acting in this is just amazing.
Every character.
And to your point, I think it's one of those things too where people who don't like horror movies and have seen this recognize her acting in this movie should have been awarded.
I can't believe it wasn't.
Yeah.
That's an absolute travesty.
It's because of the horror, you know.
Horror movies don't really get
the Academy.
Yeah, the Academy doesn't get horror movies as much as like they should. Like horror movies should get, like, A24 kind of gets, like, that's as close as it's going to get to Oscars, like horror movies with A24. Because, like, obviously we've seen other A24 movies getting awards. Midsommar got some awards.
Beau is Afraid, I think, recently
got
a lot of
recognition. Awards. Obviously, we've seen, like, other movies. You know, A24 is all around. They got these different movies. Obviously, we've seen, like, The Lighthouse, The Whale, other movies like that. A lot of great movies. But what makes Hereditary its own is because it literally is its own. No one really has done those kind of family issues with a horror movie because they're very scared at painting a picture with a whole family. Like, different characters unraveling the same story. Like, we have the mother trying to, like, get her son to realize the responsibility of his actions, while the son obviously has been dealing with the sister's death during the movie, and he obviously is petrified during this entire experience.
Well, think about this, though, and this is what makes this movie so brilliant. Think about everything that happens, and now think about it in the context of Peter being the main character.
Yeah.
And think about the whole goal of everything that was done and all the characters that were manipulated were to weaken and make Peter vulnerable. And if you think about that and you look at everything that's happened and how it happens, and it's all been engineered right down to Charlie's head getting popped off because there was a symbol on the pole.
Okay, so I got a question on that.
Sure.
And this is one of my big questions. So this was all kind of preordained, sort of, to
Everything.
Yeah. Now we got to touch on the fact that Charlie was Paimon.
Paimon, yeah,
right?
She was Paimon. There was, and Ari Aster has confirmed that.
Okay.
That she was. There was never a Charlie. Paimon inhabited her from birth.
That
okay.
scene with the mother
With the
though
mother,
on the bed.
Was it? Yeah, I was gonna say, was it the mother? Was it Ellen who passed Paimon on to?
Right, because keep in mind the mother said she kept Peter away from her mother because her and her mother were fighting, but she said she got her hooks into Charlie.
Yeah.
And remember the diorama of her breastfeeding Charlie,
whipping it out,
and she the grandmother was breastfeeding Charlie, and then you see the grandmother feeding her, and you see the black stuff in the bottom of the bottle that she's feeding Charlie with, the black herbs that are there that are supposed to be like that.
Yeah, it was all very talked about. I think I realized that, like, especially when I was like, okay, the scene where the mother was like, you never cried as a kid. You never really made issues with me. You never really tried to fight out, because Paimon had to do everything. Everything was predestined for Paimon. Everything that happened during this entire movie was supposed to go on.
Well, I don't know everything, because I don't think Charlie was a substitute, right? They really wanted Peter.
Because
he needed a male
should have
body.
been a boy, right?
He wanted a male body, yeah, exactly. And she said she wanted to be or Grandma wanted me to be a boy. And the other thing was, who's going to take care of me now that Grandma's gone? Because that's Paimon speaking. Because the grandmother, was very close with Charlie, and the idea is that Paimon's been in her since like day one.
Here's my question though about that decapitation scene right off the bat. So Paimon's and Charlie, right? Charlie eats the cake with the nuts.
What does she say?
I think my throat's getting bigger.
My throat is getting bigger. And they say that the throat, or that the soul kind of comes out of the throat.
Oh,
right?
Okay. Yeah.
And what does Peter say when he's having that attack after smoking that weed? He doesn't say, think about when if you have like an asthmatic attack, your throat is closing up, right?
Yeah.
But he says again, my throat is getting bigger. And this is as they're trying to expel Peter. So what's happening is that, yes, she eats the nuts, she has that reaction, but her throat's getting bigger. But Paimon's getting ready to leave her.
Yeah. Okay. And then, gotcha. Okay. All right. So that makes sense. I think it was just how Charlie or Paimon was reacting to, going into the allergic shock that she was going into,
right,
in the car, and then opening the window to get air, but maybe that was just a ruse.
She knew exactly what was going to happen. I mean, they had that pole marked on the way to the party. They had that pole marked.
Okay, gotcha.
And you got to keep in mind, you say, oh, well, that'd be a lot for the cult to try and engineer that moment by moment. But one of Paimon's things is the ability of foresight. One of the theories that was kind of explained was like Paimon is pulling the strings, but it's not just Paimon. An aspect of Paimon is in Charlie, but like that white light that like focuses things is kind of maybe like another more sophisticated part of Paimon or something, or like, he exists in a way that's like different than that.
I gotcha.
As I realized though, like during this movie, is that the entire family's cursed from the very beginning. Like obviously they were experiencing all these big things. Obviously the mother going into a deep state of depression and anger. The son obviously dealing with this hard-ridden, like, curse that, like, he killed his own sister. And the dad trying to play the peace, like, trying to keep them separated while also trying to make sure that the family doesn't break up. Like, he's trying to
be the glue.
Be the glue in the family, and obviously doesn't work out because, I hate the dad, man. The dad really just...
You hate the dad?
What? Yeah, the dad really like... Because the problem is, when he saw that whole thing with the mom painting the exact scene where where her daughter was killed, like, that should have been the first indication, like, something's not right here. And then he goes into this whole thing where now I'm just gonna do a whole exorcism and stuff. Like it's just like it's very like he's just going along with everything.
I think he is not afraid, but he's cautious of her because he is suspicious that she has a mental illness.
Just like her, they were both had that DID or were like diagnosed with that dissociative disorder.
Right. And like we see in the movie especially at the dinner table scene where she like really amps up and kind of loses it on Peter.
Yeah.
All I do is worry and slave and defend you, and all I get back is that fucking face on your face.
The dad, he's trying to play it, calm, relaxed.
He's trying to keep everything together.
Yes, trying to keep everything together. So I hear what you're saying.
I just don't think it's needed. With this movie, I feel like, we have these different characters that play a part while the dad kind of is playing this kind of side character when really we should have had more the dad trying to play a part in like getting Peter to like open up about it.
See, the dad to me grounds the whole thing. Because if you just had Peter and his mother, I feel like it wouldn't feel as authentic as when it feels when the father is kind of like the foil. You kind of see him, he's reacting kind of as a normal person. And I would say Peter's probably acting as normal as a person could, placed under that kind of tremendous amount of stress. But the mom is clearly going through something very different.
Yeah.
But his mild-manneredness and his like ability to try and be like the strongest point of the family kind of really emphasizes how off track everybody else is, in my opinion, when you're looking at the movie.
I agree with that. And I think the grand scheme of things, this is an allegory on mental illness being a hereditary thing.
Yeah.
And the effects of it and how people are like brought up and just having like repressive stuff that you never work on and it comes out later in life.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was thinking during the movie was kind of this real mental illness, like you said, passed down hereditary wise.
Yeah.
I think, to Logan's point too, with Steve the dad there.
Yeah.
The way they play this is actually, with his character, is really kind of more real life.
Yeah.
Versus if they were playing this like a movie, he would be the one being the true protagonist, right?
Yeah.
He would be the one trying to figure out what's going on.
Though, for that.
And but I'm saying if they're playing this like a movie,
the guy has got to be the big character.
Like he's taken over. He's trying to, figure out what's going on. His daughter's dead. Now he's got to save his son, and the mother's going crazy. They would really paint this as this kind of, we got to stop what's coming. But the way they play this is like real life, and like you can't stop what's coming, and like you're just playing, because who knows?
They're not in control,
right? Exactly.
They're dancing. They're dancing to the music box.
They're dancing with the devil.
The music box is already twisted up and playing a song, and nothing's gonna change that song.
And I think to your point too, like when you have a family that have mental illness and you're like the well-adjusted person, you're their support primarily, and you as that person have no control over how that person is going to, like how their symptoms are going to come up or things like that too. So it's like, to your point, Kevin, it's a very real situation. Like you kind of accept people you love them and accept them for who they are, and you try to support them the best you can. It's more of a realistic representation of family going through crisis.
Right. And I thought like right away, right, they kind of explain that with a very subtle scene where they come into their house after the grandmother's funeral. And first off, Steve, the dad, he's the only one that acknowledges the family dog. Right. And then second off, Annie asks him if she should be sad.
Should I be sadder?
You should be whatever you are.
Right? If she should be upset. and because she's not really feeling anything.
Yeah, well, I'm getting that the grandmother wasn't that well loved either.
Doesn't she make a
doesn't
comment
seem
at that, like at the
yeah,
funeral
everybody
too?
I'm
seems
glad my
kinda
grandmother
seems like
had
a breath
people.
of relief that Granny's done. You know, she was a Satan worshiper, so
You know what
or
I
at
wa-
least one of the 9 kings of hell. I'll look into the technicals.
You know what I want
to
to ask too? At the funeral, right? There's
Yeah.
this scene where there's this guy off to the grandmother's
Yeah.
side by the casket, and he's smiling at Charlie. Is he a cult member?
Definitely, he's
Oh,
100%.
yeah.
He's in the
Yeah.
closet when, or he's in.
Is he the naked dude?
He's one of the naked dudes.
Oh,
in
okay.
there, yeah. Specifically, they show his creepy.
Gotta love the naked.
His creepy
Oh,
face.
man.
Yeah, no, yeah, he definitely was.
Okay.
And one of the things too is, and I came back to this in my notes is think of how Charlie's death, like, because everybody's like, well, Charlie's death. How did they orchestrate that? How did they orchestrate that? But what you got to think about is what's their ultimate goal? To make Peter vulnerable, right? So they orchestrated Charlie's death to be that horrific, to be like that.
Yeah.
Why did they do that? Maximum impact to Peter. And maximum impact to the audience too. When she think about her head goes off, right?
know, yeah.
And you could just see it, like how they shot everything. I mean, it's just such a masterpiece of a movie where it just all comes together, and just his sorrow and like just despair, just blinding, horrifying despair.
You feel like you're in the car with Peter.
Oh, you absolutely do. And like, what do you do?
I'll be honest. I really liked kind of afterwards how they shot it, because I thought that was realistic too, with Peter just being in shock and seeing little kids die in movies.
Horrifying.
It affects me. Yeah.
Not anymore. Not anymore. I don't care about little kids as much in movies.
Fuck them kids.
Like, literally, like, you got to realize, though, when you watch the movie, now I'm hearing you guys talk about it, like, I'm like, I don't care that much because it was all predetermined. Everything that happened, obviously it's said in the moment, but then you got to think about it, like, it was all a demon. It was a literal, like...
Sure, but you don't know that when you're
Yeah.
first watching the movie.
Well, yeah, now that you guys are... But now that you guys have seen the movie already, you gotta say, like, to yourself, there's a certain level of realism with this movie that makes it, like, all look, like, very realistic, and it also paints a picture of this whole tragic despair thing. And then you gotta realize, hey, this is all gonna happen. This is destiny. This is fate. Like Bearclaw said, this is fate. It was bound to happen.
Well, now we know that, but like going along, were you guys like me, like just trying to figure out what's going
trying to
on?
hold
Like,
on to my seat.
Yeah.
Just trying to
you were just going along for the ride.
I was just in for the. I was horrified, especially after Charlie died. I was like, where does this go? Like, because I thought this whole movie was going to be like an Omen movie, and like Charlie was going to turn into
there's
some demon or something.
Yeah,
like,
there's definitely some of that in here.
Because I thought that's where I initially thought it was going. I was like, okay, she's gonna turn out to be like a serial killer, and the mom's gonna be helping her out, and it'll be kind of like this twist.
that
and
ain't Exorcist.
It'll be okay, because that kind of
Do you like film?
That kind of like follows the horror movie convention,
Yeah,
right?
right. I
Like
mean,
that.
To your point, right? This is one of the most unconventional horror movies.
Yeah.
It's unique.
And what they do is they actually force the viewer to untrain themselves for a normal horror movie. We are preconditioned for the jump scares, the, big moments of fear. This is all about atmosphere and making you in that room or in, the treehouse or, in that classroom, and just immersing yourself in this atmosphere and the terror that's in there.
I love the waiting factor of it. I love them waiting time, like taking time out to have the next act. Like, because with movies, it's very quick. Like, they go right into the next thing right away. But I love when they have these scenes where it's like them taking their time, planting everything that was going to happen. I love the scene at the end. He's like seeing all this happening in the treehouse. Obviously, this is Charlie or Paimon or whatever. But like that whole scene I love is because it's so long. It's reacting to its own audience. It's waiting for the audience to react to something and having this kind of like, it's not a good ending.
Right.
It's not a happy ending, but it's an ending that makes you kind of jump out of your seat and go, holy shit, like this is the end to this movie. And obviously, it's not a good ending, but it makes you relieve that it kind of like all is over now.
Yeah, it goes from like you guys were saying, the traditional horror film where it's like they try to spike your adrenaline, they try to get you with jump scares and the creepy music and like all the like different bells and whistles. And this, it's just sitting with despair, feelings of despair, and sitting with discomfort, which in this society we live in, like I don't think like we are conditioned to kind of just sit with bad feelings.
Yeah.
No.
And like this movie is just 100% atmosphere and emotion, and that's it makes you sit with negative.
Well, like you guys said at the beginning, you know, you almost felt like you were being held down watching this, you know, and seeing it play it out in front of you.
It makes you feel bad feelings, and then it makes you truly horrified. I mean, it just notches it up. And you know, a lot of people criticize it. They're like, oh, it would have been a great family drama if they hadn't added the horror at the end or something like that. But I've heard that opinion voiced, and it's like, this movie is absolute perfection as it is for what it is trying to be, and it plays you like a piano. And I mean, the horror of it is just it is wrapped up in the tragedy, but it is zero fun. It's not a Leprechaun, you know. It's
you're right
zero,
on that.
there's zero fun. There's like tragedy and anger. But one thing I want to talk about real quick, can we talk about how technically brilliant this movie is? Shots of the dollhouse, symbolic colors. Think about it. Anytime they're talking about the grandmother, yellow's a huge color. Whenever you're referencing the cult, red is used, especially when you're talking about Jane. She's always wearing something red. They're actually, if you look at the script, all of the cult
I thought her name
members-
was Joan.
Or Joan, you were right, Joan.
You're talking about the
old lady.
The
the
séance lady.
stuff.
I gotta cut you off before you go further.
Yeah.
Were you skeptical of her? Because I was wait a minute.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah, there was a whole lot. But I thought this movie was going into like a séance kind of direction, and I was like, I don't know, maybe that might be interesting. I did not see the demon angle coming. But then you go back and you rewatch the movie, or you watch like the analysis of it, and it's like it's all laid out there. They tell you everything. I mean, there's all kinds of crazy stuff. Like you can see the family take off their shoes when they get back from one of their trips out, but there's like dirt all over the floor and footprints all over the floor from when they carried up the grandmother's body. Like, and there's all these signs like throughout the movie of cult members always being around and breathing, looking in the windows.
Like I said, I need someone to sit down with me and, you know, point this, because I love that stuff, you know, but it's picking up on the subtle little things. I'm looking in like every scene about stuff I shouldn't be looking at.
That's the craziest thing about this movie. Every single scene of this movie has something that points
has a meaning.
And
He's a brilliant director.
Yeah.
He is literally like one of the best directors, because no other director kind of does that, where they paint a picture like how he does. Like every single scene, like you said, has something.
And speaking of paint, when Annie there, she was in her
blue paint bottle.
The blue paint bottle. Who knocked over the blue paint bottle?
She didn't.
She didn't.
Oh.
If you watch it,
that's cool.
Yeah.
If I go back and watch it,
she doesn't knock it. She never touches that. She never touches that paint bottle. But that paint bottle goes into Jane's phone number. Blue is also the color for Paimon in the movie. Whenever Paimon interferes with things, it's blue was one of the colors.
You know what? I was thinking overall too, when she goes with Joan into her house to do the séance, I'm like, okay, Annie's acting skeptical, right?
No. I know what that smile is. I know, Annie. I wouldn't believe it either. I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
Come on, you gotta be like, well, this no good could come of this, right?
Check it out. Well, she was saying about how her dead sons or whatever, they love chalkboards. She was buying chalkboards.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that in the documentary.
She didn't have any.
Oh man, and I don't know if it was that same documentary, but I heard someone else talking about Joan's grandson's name was Louis. Was that a reference to Lucifer?
Could it have been Lucifer helping things out? Maybe he wanted to help out his ninth king.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah, it's very good. I think one of the big things that really tells this story well is just like, you know, they go off of acting, but they also go off of trying to tell a good story. And I love I love this movie because, you know, it never, even with like Dan, obviously you're talking about exposition earlier on in this, but like exposition isn't a problem for me in this movie because I think this movie needed exposition. It needed to tell a story while also like it never dragged. This movie never dragged an exposition. Like it was needed for this movie. Like obviously, you know, they went into this whole séance kind of part. Like there's two parts of this movie for me.
Yeah.
There's one part where it's kind of introducing the characters, kind of laying over the story. Obviously, that part ending with Charlie's head getting taken off.
Yep.
And then the second part is realization. Obviously, the whole thing about Paimon and all the other cult members bringing everything all together with the seance and everything. Obviously, Peter going through his whole issues with dealing with the trauma. And I think, like, obviously the ending, you know, again, not happy, but it was like, it was kind of all foretelling. Like, it was all supposed to happen during this movie.
One of my questions I was going to ask us all is, what was the point of all this? But I guess we've kind of answered it in a way, like, this was always going to happen. you know?
The point of it was to get Paimon into Peter.
Yeah.
Because I guess if you summon, and this is like, this is Paimon is from the Lesser Keys of Solomon, which is a book of esoterica, which is a list of kind of demons. They called it Miltonian Christian or something like that, where, because, you know, there was that Paradise Lost thing and all the dukes and kings of hell and whatever. And Paimon was supposedly one of the dukes, but I mean, he is supposedly bring you great wisdom and wealth and knowledge. They kind of all promise that, but if you summon him, he'll do that. And that's why you see her, like the grandmother in a wedding dress getting showered with gold. Yeah, a lot of those weird, like, bells and stuff involved being showered with gold, and she was like his queen, and she was referred to as Queen Lee, I think, or Lay. The whole point of this was to get Paimon out of Charlie and into Peter.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I'm good. I don't want any demons with me at all. Maybe Bussin. That's a good demon.
He'll give you the Riz.
Yeah.
Yeet? Remember Yeet?
No, I'm good.
Yeet
feels like you wouldn't have any control over Yeet. Bussing
no
at
cap.
least.
You'd look real good with a bussin' demon.
Let me tell you, can we talk about some of like the terrifying images in this movie? Obviously, the decapitated head of Charlie.
Yeah, that was probably the biggest, most jarring image.
Yeah.
When I was talking to you about stuff that was gonna terrify you, that was the one I was thinking about. I was just like, that is going to like stay with you.
Hey, quick trivia, guys. Just a little bit of fun here. Where is that head shown prominently at the end of the movie?
On top, or on
top of the statue. See, you guys got that? I didn't get that the first time, but then like I went back and rewatched it after seeing, and I was like, oh, that is her head. Wow, that's.
Yeah, I knew it when I saw it, because
I thought it was just some like straw thing or something, but no, that's like
no, that's her head.
That's her head. That's
it.
You know what I like though? Best Easter egg? Some naked old people
just hanging out.
Just hanging out, having some fun,
having their Easter eggs.
Like a big Satan thing, I guess. Like to
I hate him into the world naked. You're meant to be naked.
Birthday suit, man.
Or like, I guess in the script they were supposed to all have red robes, but they thought like a lot of the Puritan art and stuff like that of women like going and being witches is them being naked in the woods. I don't know. It just has to do with more getting back to the primal and ungodly.
That's a lot of pictures.
We should be ashamed of our nudity.
I think though, like it makes it more like kind of like way. I just hated when like Peter looked in the corner and like you see the old lady waving at him like while they're naked. Like, oh my god! Like I was just like, oh god.
Yeah, that had some creepy images in that.
I mean, everybody was real happy to see Paimon.
Yeah, I mean, they seem like a fun bunch, no?
Yeah, I mean, they seem like you know, they seem like they got a lot going on. Very organized. Very organized.
Well,
big bird lovers, because Paimon is in fact a bird. That's also one of the things that
oh god
that I would like to go into here, because Paimon is a bird. That's why you hear the cluck.
The clucking sound
is
you know what? It's pretty terrifying.
Exactly.
It's jarring. It's not within time, you know. it's definitely one of those things in a movie you remember and associate with for the rest of your life.
Remember when she was driving, Annie was driving in the car and she hears the cluck and there's nobody in the back seat?
Yes, that was cool.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what scene I want to talk about? Speaking of the car scene, I really liked, and it's funny, when I watched it, I knew what it was, and I did see it later in one of the documentaries on this movie. But I did recognize it when it was going on, where Peter had broke his nose in class.
Mm-hmm.
Steve gets the call. He had been drinking a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
He goes, picks up Peter in the car. He has that scene where, like, the red light happens.
They almost gets hit.
Yes, and it gets back to where Peter was in the accident, and it almost kind of puts Steve in that frame, like, things could have been different. I'm in Peter's shoes for a second, like thinking about
I
that.
thought I was the only one who noticed that, was that they kind of tied it back.
Yes.
They tied it back, and I think that was the one, like, really good scene of, like, the eventual, like, realization, like, this was always, like, meant to happen. I think Steve realized that at a certain point. Like, he was kind of like, what could have happened if I was here? Like, if I was the one who was picking up Charlie. And I think, like, that's the reason why I like the dad mostly, is because the dad...
I thought you said you hated the dad.
Well, I'm going to change my point of view because
Okay.
I didn't realize this, but I was, like, thinking about it now as I'm, like, we're talking about this. But the dad plays an important part because the dad is mostly like Peter. Obviously, like, you know, in normal families, you know, like, the dad is usually more, like, involved with the son, and the daughter's more like the mother. In this family, they're all like each other. And I think, like, the mom obviously has the same issues that Peter obviously has. I think Peter has a lot of social anxiety and a lot of other issues like that.
Yeah, you can
where
see that.
they both kind of have that same issue. I think they're very similar in that realm. But you could also say, like, Peter's very much like the dad because he also has this kind of realization that he's very much like Peter. Like, you know, he was drinking when he tried to pick up his son and could have had the same issue as him. So they're kind of, like, intertwined in this family. And then we also get Paimon, who's kind of like every single one in this family.
He's a big member of the family.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about
he
it
makes
too.
the family.
Because the famous scene of the family dinner, right? And Annie's going right directly at Peter, talking about the look that he gives her or whatever. And we're almost led to believe, you know, this happens throughout their lives where he gives her a sneering look. But that is Paimon kind of playing a trick on her, no? Or is that really him?
I mean, teenagers are
Or is that
sarcastic.
mental illness that she does have, you know?
Can I just say that I don't know if it's ever shown, like, in the movie that her behavior that she's talking about, I don't ever truly see what she's talking about in the movie. Did anybody else happen to notice how he,
like, interacts with her? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, like, I feel like she's embellishing it almost.
So that's my question that I'm really asking, because we don't see that as the audience.
Yeah.
So
I don't get that impression from, like, their interactions. I get the impression from that it's a very, like, standoffish relationship.
right.
But
Yeah.
Everybody starts in this movie incredibly isolated. I think the grandmother has spent a long time cultivating damage and making sure that this family is not supposed to come together to help out Peter.
And that's what makes Peter's part so powerful, is because, like you were talking about, like, he was never vulnerable. He never really cared about the grandmother. Like, he didn't really care as much. When we first get introduced to Peter, obviously, he's still sleeping in. He doesn't care. The dad's obviously trying to get him into this. But obviously, as the movie goes on, he becomes more vulnerable and he becomes more tragic because of this accident that happened. While all the other people are kind of playing a part after the grandmother's funeral. They've already been captivated by the grandmother's death.
Well, to Bearclaw's point, I mean, this family is all disassociated from each other.
Yeah.
They're all in separate areas. They really barely interact at all.
Well, now they're in different areas as well at the ending.
Yeah.
Obviously, the dad probably went to heaven or some kind of form. Is heaven really a thing in this movie?
I mean, if hell is
If hell is a thing, okay, you know what? I'm gonna say
philosophically.
heaven. Dad's probably in heaven. The mom's obviously, she's her own person. Charlie's no longer there.
Well, is the mom evil or no?
I was gonna say, yeah, is the mom evil? Because I don't think she's evil. I think she tried to be good, and she tried to save her children at a couple of different points.
So here's another question. What happens after Steven dies? It suggests that Paimon goes into Annie.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, so that would explain
why she's flying.
Well, yeah. Well, of
Also
course that.
sawed her own head off with the piano wire.
Right.
Yeah,
So
that happened.
That happened too.
He
Yeah.
kept on going into Paimon kept on going into a female body.
right.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about like the entire chase scene with Peter and coming after him, and I kind of was getting like a little bit of confusion. Is this Annie trying to kill Peter to stop Paimon from like the Paimon prophecy from coming to fruition, or is this Paimon possessed as Annie trying to get into Peter?
So I would say at that point, it's Paimon just trying to really further drive him down the pipeline of just make him as vulnerable as possible. But Annie does try to save Peter when she tries to set him on fire, when she says she wanted an abortion or she wanted to miscarriage him.
Oh, yeah.
She was trying to save, because unconscious Annie knew that there was a bigger machine going on for years and years
that makes
and
sense.
years.
Yeah.
That she was trying to, the only way out she could think for her children was going to be to end them. Then they wouldn't be
Subjected to this fate.
I don't think Paimon was ever in Peter until the very end when he
Yeah.
goes through the window.
I agree with you.
Because like the little like soul going right into Peter's body.
There's that scene where the light goes.
Well,
in.
hold on. What about the scene where he smashes his face on the desk?
I think
it's degrees of control that he has over him.
I would say that, yeah, because like there's ways that Paimon has control over him. Obviously, taking control of him because now he's vulnerable. He can be taken control of. Obviously, before Paimon didn't really have that because he had Charlie. Now that Peter's kind of like left in this kind of state of trauma, Paimon can just slip in whenever he wants. But Peter has control over himself. That's why he's banging on the table to try to get Paimon out. He realized that Paimon was getting in. At the end, I was kind of like realizing Peter and Annie have this like disproportionate relationship. And Annie at the end, I think I agree with you, was trying to stop Peter. She was trying to kill Peter because that was the only way she could stop Peter from like getting possessed by Paimon.
Well, I have a question too, because they do reference that she at one point was sleepwalking and tried to set him on fire, right?
And I was standing there with a box of matches and an empty can of paint thinner. And I woke myself up striking the match, which also woke Peter up, and he started to scream.
That's her unconscious. She's trying to save her children. Because that's the only way her unconscious mind, who is picking up on things that her conscious mind isn't, can think of to try and save her children.
Stop for one second. I got pee so bad.
Okay.
Edit this out.
Don't edit it, Nathan. Don't do it.
Fuck it! Do it live!
I'd just really like to take some time to go into why Paimon is a bird.
Oh God, no.
This is very important to me, so I'm going to use this opportunity to talk for a while about why Paimon is in fact a bird. This is not my
Unplug
theory.
his mic.
This is from Novum, and there's a whole great YouTube video out about this with some hard-hitting evidence. First off, the click is actually a cluck. It's mentioned as a cluck by both Ari Aster.
Call it the mouths of Nova.
I think that's important, and I think that's an interesting thing because like if Paimon doesn't know how to like talk, there's like the bit about if you look, and this is the real damning thing is
So
if you look at the
question for you.
picture of Paimon in the book, he's got bird feet. In the book, in the movie.
Nathan, I hope you're loving this.
I am indeed, Logan. Now back to our regularly scheduled non-bird related programming.
I think with this movie, what this movie needs is a little bit more clarity on who exactly is in this cult. We obviously have Joan, the friend of Annie, obviously having to help her during this troubling time.
Well, I don't know if they're exactly friends.
Yeah.
She's manipulating her.
Hey, friends, manipulating
Now, her
people.
and the grandmother, they were BFFs.
Yes.
Yeah. We obviously have Joan, and I think also one of the big members that we're not really talking about of this cult is the girl that Peter was really into, Bridget. And I think
she's a member of the cult.
I think
bet
she's
you
a member of the cult.
Oh my God,
I got a question
that
for you,
blows my
Logan,
mind.
about that. Do you think Peter is edging for Bridget?
Oh Jesus,
He's gooning pretty hard, right?
dude! I think.
Would you say he's a gooner?
What's gooning?
dude? Don't ask.
You
Don't
wanna
ask
know.
questions you don't want the answers to. let's get back to dinner time. I don't want to talk about edging. I don't want to talk about gooning. But you know what? Peter's not an edger. He's not a gooner. But he definitely has a Reddit.
Oh,
Yeah, he's a nerd. But he was also in Jumanji.
Peter?
Yeah, he was in the new Jumanji movie.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was going back to the Kirsten Dunst one.
Yeah,
I'm showing
that's
my
the first
age.
one I was like,
No, the Rock
no way.
one.
No
Rock
way,
and
the
Kevin
kid from there's
Hart.
got to be like 40 or something years old now.
He's
I was
older
like,
than us, for
Yeah.
God's sakes.
Hey, look, if people on Euphoria can play 16-year-olds, then why not him?
M. Night Shyamalan twist for the Jumanji movies. The original guy, played by Robin Williams, is the same guy played by The Rock.
What a twist!
Same guy. The entire movie.
I don't really know what to
I
do
gave you
with
that Shyamalan twist.
Shyamalan twist. He's the same guy.
I gave you that M. Night Shyamalan
You know,
twist.
he is a friend of the podcast, so he might hear this. I don't know.
What?
Name dropping.
M. Night. If you're hearing this, M. Night, we love you, man.
Yeah.
Except for Avatar, that was a dark movie. Touching back on Bridget.
Wait a minute. M. Night Shyamalan did Avatar?
Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh.
Yeah, he also did.
I'm so out of my depth here. I'm swimming in the
I
deep
know him
end.
from The
I don't
Sixth
know.
Sense. I don't know.
I think he
I was gonna say
also.
The Sixth Sense. I remember.
I think he also did Stuart Little too.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Yeah, he did some big movies. I don't know if it was just directing, but he definitely had a part in both those movies. But getting back to Bridget, trying to talk about a damn
I didn't.
mouse.
You know what though? I didn't think about that. You might be right on that.
Isn't it her house that the party's at? And then there's the cake that has a fuck ton of nuts being put into it.
Let me ask you guys
Who
something.
the hell puts nuts in a cake?
We've all been to our share of parties.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the older folks here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, we have a good 20 years on you.
Yeah.
So we've been to like 10 more parties than you.
Well, I went through the Black Plague. What did you guys go through?
Yeah, you're right. I
Yeah.
know. I feel bad.
Went through two. Went through Ebola and COVID.
What? No, but I was saying, how many parties have you guys been to where they're making like chocolate cake with a big fuck ton of nuts? Like, what are they making a cake at a party? Unless there's edibles or something going on here. I don't know.
I mean, I went to some pretty wild baking parties back in
Oh,
the
you
day.
did, Bearclaw.
Yeah, no, it was great. You know, we did all kinds of mousses and cakes. Really some
That's the
fantastic
kind of party I like.
We even did croissants every now and again. You know, really dove
Look,
into some
see,
croissants.
oui.
I
Danishes.
apologize. You missed out
Some
on
of
these
the,
awesome baking
these
parties.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because we're all talking about what we did during COVID, and you know, if I'm putting all my cards on the table, I watched quite a bit of the Great British Bake Off.
Awesome.
But no, I get your point, Kevin. Like, nobody's just like at a high school party. Nobody's just like baking a cake. Like, that's a very odd thing to be going down. Yeah,
I think it was meant to happen.
Yeah.
But that's the whole thing's supposed to be.
Yeah,
odd.
so your point, maybe that girl was a cult member.
They were all cult members, I think.
Yeah,
like, everybody
around
in the
them.
support group was a cult
Yeah.
member.
Yeah, I heard
like-
that. Yeah.
Like-
I think what really ties it together for me is when I rewatching the movie just recently, I did see like one of the scenes where Peter was in class, obviously like looking at her ass while the teacher was talking to him, and he asked him a question. He was like, I don't know. And the weird thing is Bridget looks back at him, smiles, then turns away, and Peter's kind of like weirded out. Like, I don't think she realized that he was checking her out. Like, he was checking her out. Like, that wasn't the big
I think
thing.
she knew it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think those,
She knew how good her ass
I don't think
looked
so.
in that chair.
She was a pawn on the board.
She knew.
She was there to
He
make
was
Peter
edging
move.
for her.
Yeah.
Or gooning her?
I
What?
don't like that every cult member in this movie was smiling at some character in this movie. It's very
They're
weird.
all very happy though. They're about to be have infinite wealth
smiling
and
at me.
knowledge and like
This isn't Smile. This is Hereditary. movie.
Well, I mean, they're just so happy that their Lord and Savior is about to become real, and they're about to be all showered in gold. And remember, the mom wrote in that book, like, listen, there's a lot of sacrifices. Like, you might have to saw your head off with piano wire, but it's all going to be worth it in the end.
In the end.
In the end, trust, it'll be worth it.
Step 1.
Give your child to Satan.
Yeah.
Step 2. Cut your head off. Step 3.
Kind of like
Profit.
It's kind of like How I Met
Such
Your
a
Mother.
simple plan.
If anyone watches How I Met Your Mother, but there's this big thing where Barney has the playbook, and it's like these steps on how to like get women. I think that's literally what the grandmother has.
left.
Yeah,
Oh, man.
Like, ugh.
And listen, before I forget, if you want any baking tips from Bearclaw, please email him
please email me at the padded room. I want to see all of
At
your baked
outlook.com.
Get
Alaskas.
some nuts in your cake.
All of us real British baking show heads know that you can put nuts in a cake and it's delicious.
Now, Dan, you were saying something earlier too about being interested in maybe a
Yeah.
prequel?
So what were your guys' thoughts on this? When we're going through the Annie's eulogy and she's explaining like her childhood, her father dying of starvation due to psychotic depression, the brother being schizophrenic and claiming that their mother was putting spirits or people inside of him.
Because she was.
Because obviously she was. So that begs the question. Is there room to do like a prequel? Would you guys be interested in kind of seeing how Ellen kind of got into this whole thing, and her first attempt clearly failed?
Yeah.
So like
Maybe a younger Ellen.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, like not an older Ellen. I do not want to see that old grandma, that old hag.
I'm talking about when like she's raising Annie and her brother and
Logan's
her
an ageist.
Yeah.
I would say
and the
even
husband.
before that. Maybe even before she has kids. Maybe like an Ellen that is kind of being thrown into this. Like maybe actually what they should do is have her family, her parents with Ellen.
I think Ellen should be played by Kristen Bell. Like,
oh my God. What are you, a hater or something?
No, I'm just saying. Just think about it.
I mean, I guess it would be cool.
Like this nice, sweet young girl's like, oh, I'm gonna go be worshiping Satan later. Like,
That's kind of apropos, like like this kind of sweet actress fault that we think.
No, to Dan's point though, I think it would be, at least interesting to see a movie on.
like there's enough meat on that bone to explore.
I
They
would
gotta be
definitely
careful.
interested in that.
They gotta be careful to kind of intertwine every story. Like they can't have.
Well, it wouldn't be as interesting as Hereditary.
No,
Should
plus,
they do a sequel?
Well, plus you have a advanced knowledge of
Right,
everything,
you're already-
and you're not going along with everything. But like you said, there's still a story to tell.
There's still meat on that
If
bone,
Ari
I
Aster
agree.
is writing and directing it too, I mean, why not?
Yeah, if he's directing it, then yes. But if anyone else is, no, I do not want. He needs to be a part of it. I would be okay
go
with.
straight to Tubi.
I'd be okay with a sequel.
A sequel to Hereditary.
Yeah, why not?
So you get to see
Like the aftermath?
Yeah.
Paimon, like
I want.
free bird seed for everybody.
I think. Jesus. I kind of want to see like what happened afterwards. Like it was definitely left up with like a cliffhanger. I like that ending, but with this kind of movie, it left me wanting more. And
well, that's
obviously,
what they did.
Yeah, but like I think if there's a drive, obviously like 80 million ain't nothing. Like they could do a lot with the money that A24 is rolling in now. Like they're rolling in the cash.
Well, that's why Ari Aster, he's got a blank check to do what he wants.
Yeah.
Maybe he does want to do Hereditary too.
I don't
Maybe.
think so.
I hope not. I hope they just keep.
Yeah,
this
I think they
movie.
kind of keep it.
Do you guys out there want to see a Hereditary too?
Yeah, you should let me know. You should email me at thepaddedroom@outlook.com. Let me know. Does this need a prequel? Does it need a sequel? Does it need to stay exactly perfect the way that it is? You got to let me know at thepaddedroom@outlook.com. And while you're there, you should also think about, joining the madness with some of our great merch. That's at tpublic.com.
Yes. Yeah.
Get yourself a Hollis is my homeboy mug.
You know what? We also have a new design up there for little Michael Myers from Halloween Resurrection. Got fennel.
You got that fennel? You got that fresh fennel?
Bad movie, good shirt.
Yes. Well, now I think it's time for Hook, Line, and Stinker. So for my hook, my favorite kill, I'm gonna go with the piano wire.
I mean, how can you not, really?
Well,
I don't know. There's a couple of good ones in this one that will stay with you forever and ever and
yeah,
ever.
I was about to say not good. Well,
Yeah,
gone.
right. And this is one of them. The piano wire, just the sound.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Just staring at it, like
And
the
then
back and forth
And then
motion.
you hear it once Peter's on the ground because he's jumped out the window and becomes Paimon.
Yes,
and you
You
hear
still hear the hearing.
Oh.
What's weird is I swear to God, I remember there was a scene where her head actually came off and hit the floor. I swear I saw that.
Well, one of the scenes is when he thinks he sees his sister and her head falls down.
No. I'm talking Annie.
And then you hear the thunk.
But you actually, I swear I remember seeing it happen.
I don't remember that.
But I'm saying it's like that Mandela effect of like just even the sound of it.
Yes.
You like
The sound is
have
worse.
the
Yeah.
visual
The
of
sound
it.
is worse.
It's all about imagination.
Yeah.
and, you know.
Yeah, I don't need to see that.
And they did it perfectly because they gave us enough of the visual to let our imagination take care of the rest.
Oh, just so much worse.
Oh man, my line's not really a line. It's the Charlie's clucking sounds. It's terrifying now.
Yeah.
My stinker is the scene where Annie, she doesn't really want to go to these support groups at first, and then she does go to a support group after her mom dies. And she's kind of being timid, like first time. And then all of a sudden she just basically trauma dumps on the whole group. It was kind of like, well, I don't really want to. Oh, okay. Like here, my family all died. My mom, was terrible and blah, 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 blah. It was just kind of a funny scene and kind of seeing everybody, almost back away a little bit. I know they were cult members now, but it was just one of those. Yeah. Woo. All right, Dan, what do you have?
For my hook is Steve's death.
Poor Steve.
It's my favorite. I think it's one of the more shocking deaths.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even though they set the rule up with the book, like if it's burnt, the person who burned
But he
it
didn't
gets
throw
burnt.
it in the fire.
Right. We get a twist that it's Steve this time, and it's the finger on the scale that says it's the demon pulling all the strings, playing all the tricks, and making all the rules. It's the point in the movie the demon has asserted full control over the family, the only stable character burnt to a crisp. It's metaphorical for caregiver burnout, I think.
Yeah.
The movie, the undertones are all about mental illness. Kind of mentioned that earlier, the hereditary nature of it. And this guy loved his family and tried to be as supportive to them as he could. And he ends up getting burnt up. To me, is one of the characters I feel for the most, trying so hard to like instill a semblance of balance and normalcy to his wife and his kids' struggles. My line, Charlie.
Who's gonna take care of me?
Excuse me, you don't think I'm gonna take care of you?
But when you die.
Who's gonna take care of me when you die? Like this one, it's like one of the biggest foreshadowings in retrospect. When you get the final dialogue at the end of the movie explaining what happened to Peter becoming Paimon, who was Charlie. It's like, this wasn't an innocent kid questioning, grasping, like asking questions, grasping at the concept of death. This is an actual demon who knew all these people that were caring for him, were his family, are going to die.
Yeah.
My stinker, this is probably going to get chastised a little bit from Mr. Logan over here. In general, I felt the movie was a little bit too long. I felt like there were parts that really dragged out that shouldn't have. Like, just in general, I thought it. Yeah. Like, I get the idea of building tension. There were some scenes that like they dragged and there was no tension really in them. I don't know. It was a 2-hour movie. Going back to like the idea of having to rewatch it again just to kind of pick up on things, like it's just
Yeah.
A little bit of love.
No, I mean, I disagree. I could see where there might be, but I don't know. It's hard for me to describe this movie as anything but perfect. All right, so my hook was obviously Annie sawing off her head. I mean, she looks like she's afraid as she's doing it,
Yes, yeah,
showing
terrified.
that she's not in control. all of the practical effects. You know, I love practical effects.
Same.
You know, I love those practical effects.
Give it to me.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that scene was just heart-wrenching, and then Peter jumps, and like that's just how you know that's the moment where the wheels have totally come off. I mean, I think, like you said, I think the wheels really come off as soon as the fuss Steve goes up in flames. That's pretty much the like you're off to the races. Like things are so cooked, they're never gonna be the same. Literally, yeah. Oh, poor Steve. By the way, you know, Steve, the actor who played Steve, he did an amazing job.
Burns, is it?
I think you're right.
I think you're right.
Gabriel Byrne.
Gabriel Byrne. And let me tell you, if you ever want to see like the best gangster movie of all time, it's one of the first Coen brother movies. It's called it's like I'll think of it. Nathan, help me out here on this one, because
Editor's note. It's called My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic, or Miller's Crossing, one of the two.
Editor's note, Nathan, help me out on this one, because I was going to say Finnegan's Wake, but that's not it. It's the one where they're all changing hats all the time. I don't know. Anyways,
he also played
Caps
the
for
devil
sale?
in End of Days.
He did play the devil in End of Days.
You're right. Yes.
But he's fantastic in that movie as a gangster. He saws off his own head. That's just fantastic. My favorite line is when Annie is in the dream sequence and she's talking with Peter, and she's still in the dream sequence, and she talks about how she tried to have a miscarriage with him, and Peter goes,
You tried to kill me.
I love you.
Why did you try to kill me?
I did. I was trying to save you.
Why did you try to kill me?
I was trying to save you. Because when you first hear about the things that Annie tried to do to her children, I mean, Annie is instantly a hated character.
Yes.
And you see the mental illness, but maybe she wasn't mentally
Maybe she should have been a beloved character.
Yeah,
in a way.
maybe she should have.
Yeah.
She was trying to save them. There was no other way out. You know, this is somebody who's been manipulated for years, and there's no other way out. That was my line. The stinker. I mean, I couldn't think of anything that was too much of a stinker in this movie. I think Charlie's head being on the statue at the end.
That was a bit of a stinker.
I don't know if that was a stinker, but that was just like a piece like that just made it extra hurt at the end. I don't know. It just
was a little out of place.
It was like a little. I don't even know if it was like out of place, I would say, but it was just like it's just a lot. So it was emotionally just a lot.
Yeah. Emotionally draining.
Yeah. So that was my hook, line, and stinker.
All right, Logan, what do you have?
Hook gotta be the piano. It's very well done. Obviously, the sounds are just, oh my God.
I'm surprised no one said Charlie's decapitation.
No.
I don't even let them think about it.
Yeah, like, it happened. Now, like I said before, kids, F them kids.
Yeah.
I don't care about kids in
Dang.
movies. I try not to talk about them, especially when it comes to demons possessing kids. It's disheartening to see a character like Toni Collette, obviously Annie, playing this great role. You know, obviously, you know, she turned into the villain at one point in the movie, but you still got to feel for her, obviously losing everything she's got and now having to do this in front of her own son is just like, it's a lot, you know? It's a lot to hear too, you know, like obviously we don't see anything. We see it, we hear it. It's just like, it's a lot going on. It's one of the best things of this movie. Just like it's very
Or the
like,
worst.
Yeah.
I would say it's best and worst.
Oh.
So, but line, I would have to say the scene where Annie's talking to Joan and she's like,
You didn't kill her, Annie.
What? She isn't gone.
she was never really gone. Like, I think that's like one of the scenes where I was like, oh, so now she knows.
Oh, yeah. That was a clue, huh?
Yeah, that was a little bit of foreshadowing to what was actually happening. Like I told you, like the first part of this movie was introduction and the second part was realization. And that was like a big part of the realization part was when Annie really like got into it and she started digging deeper into the whole thing and obviously getting into the séance and all that kind of stuff. And that was like a whole, well, it's a nightmare, you know?
What's interesting, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Mm-hmm. It is, because it's fate. We're tied to our fate. Like, obviously, people talk about, you know, predeterminism and choices. Do we have free will, or is everything predetermined for us? This movie is one of those things, predeterminism. There is no free will. No one is free to their own choices. Everything is tied to the way it is because of this demon taking control of this family. The family is kind of taking control of during this entire thing with the grandmother's death. We have the Charlie's death, or Paimon, you know, whatever. They're entirely controlled by Paimon, so like there is no free will.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, also, like, how Annie starts out as a skeptic towards all of her mother's spirituality and like stuff, and how she, because of the tragedy that happens, she inadvertently ends up becoming her mother and
that's
inviting,
kind of like us.
inviting Paimon into their home.
If you think of the language that she read, it was real. It was a language, I guess.
Yeah, it's Latin, isn't it?
It's something. I don't know, but it's basically saying, Paimon, come on in and have a party. Like,
yeah.
Hey,
what a party.
What a party, yeah. I mean, I think, you know, the skeptic is obviously a character we've seen in many other movies being told. This movie does it very well because it all ties together. You know, Annie obviously not wanting to do it, now wanting to get into all of it, obviously doesn't believe any of it, gets thrown right into it because of what happened. You know, tragedy defines us. You know, like, obviously I know, like, other things happen in life that we can't really, like, control, but one of the big things is, you know, like, addiction's a big thing. You know, like, people get into alcohol and other things, but they find a way out by faith. And that's kind of what she does. She gets through tragedy by trying to dig deeper into what's going on in the family.
Well, you know, something that you said kind of triggered to me too. One of the things about this movie is about grief. And I mean, I think with grief is you feel like you don't have control because you've lost something, right? And you've lost control. And this movie capitalizes on that feeling of, like, grief and how that's a scenario where you lose control and the family is losing control.
Yeah.
Yeah. For Stinker, I don't really have too much, like, to say bad about this film. Like, there's nothing really, I would say just naked old people. Not needed. We could have had them with some robes
Could
on.
have been hot and young.
Yeah.
Hey, if they were hot and young.
Like the Mouths of Madness, right?
Oh, yeah. Instead, we got, you know, some old schlong and stuff. So, yeah, I did not want to see that.
No one likes old schlong? Ugh.
Yeah.
All right, we're on to our final rating.
They're gonna rate the movie. What will they rate the movie? The killer is great, the victim sucks, the survivor is in between. What was that?
All right, for me, everybody come at me. This is
Kevin, you don't have to do this.
You don't have to do this.
You don't have to do this.
You could just keep it at Survivor.
I'm gonna keep it at Survivor. I am. The reason
You're
why
wrong objectively, but
yeah, listen.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say a bunch of real nice things about this movie, and you're gonna be like, "Oh, why didn't you rate a killer?"
Yeah.
And I totally understand that, but this movie is probably one of the best atmospheric horror movies I've seen in a while. I do think, you know, and I was talking to our producer, Nathan, and he had said, you know, this movie years from now will kind of be like The Shining was with Jack Nicholson.
Absolutely.
And I kind of agree to that. I think it's going to be looked at very fondly for everything, you know, how it was shot, the atmosphere, the acting, you know, just the longevity, because I do think this movie is going to have longevity. I don't think it's going to be a timepiece by any stance. The acting was great. I can't stress enough. Toni Collette should have won.
Robbed. She was robbed.
She was robbed.
Yeah.
I kind of want to know what Ebert thought about this.
I wish, yeah, that would have been.
You know, if you,
yeah,
I know. I wish he was, but well, that's another, that's another thing. For me, why this movie isn't a killer is because rewatchability. I can't put myself through a rewatch. I think I could with like certain people who like will explain things and we can, you know, go through it and notice different things. I could see that. It's not a fun movie by any means. You know, we talked a lot about the trauma and tragedy in this. It doesn't feel good.
No, it's not a feel-good movie.
No, not at all. And like I said with Leprechaun, that was a fun ride. Yes, I get it. It's a completely different movie. But that's why this, for me, is a Survivor, because I can't rewatch this many times. But I will recommend this because I think if people haven't seen it, please go see it. And if you listen to us talk about all this stuff, man, shame on you for not seeing it first.
Shame on you for not seeing it first, but you're also going to see a lot of the cool, like you can watch this and with all the stuff that we've said.
Yeah.
And we appreciate you listening. All right, Dan, what do you have?
I agree with you, Kevin. I give this movie a survivor.
Yes, I'm not a sole survivor this time.
No.
Or should you be?
Other than going back and trying to sort out all the breadcrumbs that are planted throughout the movie that foreshadows the ending, this movie doesn't have a lot of rewatchability to me. I don't find the rewatches rewarding spotting the new clues. You learn how hopeless and futile the story is by its conclusion. Do I really need to examine it scene by scene? No. It doesn't really make me feel any better watching it. It's not fun. The story as well, it's okay. For me, it's the acting. It's what's like the best part of this movie. Like Toni Collette, we've said it so many times.
Yeah.
She should have deserved some kind of recognition, an award, something for it. Like she has masterclass in capturing grief and loss that I think I've seen in any movie, and like her performance makes it that much more terrifying and unsettling just because, again, negative emotions, we're so uncomfortable sitting with them. Good vibes only. Obviously has an effect on my rating.
Yeah.
There are like just a ton of amazing scenes to your guys' point. Like I appreciate this movie. I think it is going to be a modern day classic that people will reference like 15, 20 years from now for its scenes, for its imagery. Charlie's death, Steven's death, Charlie possessing Annie climbing up the walls and stalking Peter in the background, the desk scene. There's just a lot of cool visual stuff, truly jarring and unsettling. Those are its strengths, but for me, it's not enough to be a killer in my list, but I truly do think people should watch this movie. I highly recommend it. The first watch is the best watch.
And keep in mind, too, these are our opinions and our ratings for like what we feel on these movies.
Right.
So that said, Bearclaw, perfect
That
movie.
said, I feel
Set
like
him up.
I feel like I'm a character in this movie in that I have no choice in my outcome for this. Which is this has to be a killer. I stand here beside myself and a little birdie named Paimon as we're gonna explain to you. This is a killer. I mean, just alone on the fact that, like, I hated watching this movie every second of it. I've watched it another probably 2 times, and I've watched a whole 5-hour documentary on it. I've watched every YouTube video analysis I could find on this, and just the artistry of the movie. He had a palette of emotions that that Ari Aster put onto film that just takes you through a ride that is unforgettable. I mean, like I said, I don't feel like I have a choice in this because technically the movie is brilliant. The acting is brilliant. The characters are brilliant. How it inspires terror, tragedy, and grief. I mean, they're not fun emotions. It's not a fun movie, but how you could mention horror without mentioning this movie it's such a piece of horror that, while it isn't the whole thing, it's not like it's not the terrified person running from a killer who's the inevitable fate. It's more complex, but it's so much more. It uses tragedy to kind of guide you through the horror of it, and it's truly, I hold it so high as an example. And while I don't like, it's not fun, it's not a good time, but if you want to become a horror aficionado or understand the genre of horror, I don't see how it's not required reading. So for me, it has to be a killer.
Oh, that was eloquently said, Bearclaw.
Yeah, very profoundly said. So I picked this movie, so obviously, last one to go is kind of fitting. But, I obviously picked this movie because I think it's one of the best horror movies that I've seen. Obviously, I haven't seen the full genre of horror movies, but I would say this has got to be one of the top horror movies. It is literally in the name. Like, horror movies were made for this. Like, there is no other horror movie that I can think of that is this jarring, this thrilling, more than Hereditary. So for that, I have to give it a killer. Just everything that everyone has said is kind of all like kind of what I agree with, you know, even though like obviously we have different opinions about the movie. The only reason I would say it's a killer is because of how much it makes you think about it. Like we sat here talking about it for a long time because honestly, there's a lot to go about. Like there's a lot of stuff that we've missed and there's a lot of stuff that hasn't been said, but that's the reason why this movie is so good is because of how much time and effort was put into this movie to try to make you feel this sense of terror. Like normal movies don't really do that anymore. They're trying too hard. This movie doesn't have to try. It gives you a certain level of concern and just makes you strap along and you have to ride. You're in for the ride. Yeah, you're in for the ride. You can't get out because once you're in, you can't look back.
Now, gentlemen, we have a tie. 2 survivors, 2 killers. But our 5th member of Madness, Nathan, our producer.
Let's hear it.
He's going to break the tie.
Oh, and I know which way Nathan's going to go. I'm confident.
It's a killer for him.
Yeah.
And he said it's more than a killer.
He's a gentleman and a scholar. That makes sense. I would also classify
He's an
this
educated.
Yeah.
He said that this is a modern masterpiece, and Toni Collette, enough said.
Yeah. No.
Now, we also asked some of our audience what their thoughts were on Hereditary. So let's take a look at our Instagram, and that's at mouths.of.madness. Living Dead Jill. Love this movie. Such an unsettling atmospheric film. The decapitation, mom on the wall. The treehouse scenes are so iconic. Hail King Paimon.
Is she a cult member?
Melanie _ St. George. Great movie. The scene where she is sawing off her own head made me scream in the theater. That was so scary. Yeah.
It was. Yeah. Agreed.
I will agree with them because I did see somebody's reaction to this movie, which is what I thought your guys' reaction was going to be, was when they had the first screening of Hereditary, when the Toni Collette scene came on, and everyone was screaming.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone. Like, there wasn't a single person, like, even if they weren't screaming, their eyes were, like, wide open.
How crazy is it that you hear her taking the wire out of the piano before that?
Oh, God. All right. I can't think about this. All right.
Yeah.
Another comment here from horror_hockey_forever. Great one. We have another comment from Coffee and Cannons. I lost sleep over this movie, so that means it's good.
You're welcome, America.
Yeah. Did you get that on film? Hereditary is an amazing movie, arguably Ari Aster's best. It is super unsettling, even beyond the scary parts. It forces the audience to watch some of the most realistic portrayals of grief and raw emotion that were seen in any horror movie. The movie and Toni Collette were robbed at the Oscars. Yeah. We agree wholeheartedly. Good buddy of the podcast, the smooth one. Have fun with that mind fuck of a movie. Laugh out loud.
That seems like what he would say.
That checks out.
I am a big fan of Ari Aster movies. Yeah, I think. I think we might have to review a couple more for the podcast.
Oh yeah, Midsommar.
I'm gonna go home and watch Midsommar as soon as
I might do it too.
That one's almost 3 hours, isn't it?
I'm gonna go watch The Leprechaun again.
I'd rather meet an actual leprechaun than watch that.
But let us know, what are your thoughts on Hereditary? Was this the most terrifying movie you've seen?
Yeah, you gotta let me know at thepaddedroom@outlook.com.
Now, we'll be back again soon with another episode, and we're going to be doing the original A Nightmare on Elm Street for our next episode. Now, back to the padded room with you.
Well, that made me hungry, guys. Now it's time for the main course.
Main course? What?
What main course?
What? Hey, let go!
Hey!
Come on!